Hi, I'm Matt Revel, Director of Policy and Communications for the Delaware State Senate Republican Caucus.
And I'm Charlie Meganson, Deputy Director of Communications. You know, Matt, one of my jobs, as you know, is finding ways to increase viewership. And what I found is actually that if we get someone in here with a decent head of hair, we can increase viewership by 2 to 3 times. So that's why I'm here today.
Today we're joined by Senator Dave Wilson from the 18th Senate District. Senator, how are you?
I'm doing great, Matt.
So today just really wanted to touch on a very important piece of legislation that you introduced this session, Senate Bill 106. Do you care to go into that and just describe what it does?
Yes, I had a young lady contact me, and she's a homeschool mother, and she was concerned about her daughter not being able to receive pathology in the public school system. And her child was homeschooled, and we contacted the local school district, and they said there was no funding available for homeschool children. It was for charter schools and public schools, but there wouldn't be any funding for homeschool. So at that point, I became a little inquisitive. Well, why are they not being included? And I asked some questions about it. In fact, Deanna Killen was the one that really went through and got the research, and she said, I'm really interested in this bill and seeing that it moves forward. So she said, let's do some work on it. So we went to Debbie Gottschall to write a bill, and we came up with a bill, and still the Department of Education didn't see the need for it or interested in this bill. And after working with the Department of Education, they decided that we would try to reach some kind of common grounds to come up with Bill 106. And I feel that it's a great bill. It's, you know, we here in Delaware, we say no child should be left behind. So if a child has a speech problem, then why wouldn't we extend speech pathology to them also? So at that point, I really became kind of aggressive with it. I said, you know, I want to know why. And they said, well, there's no federal dollars. And I said, well, where's the federal money come? Well, it's all federal program, but if we use it for homeschool children, we're going to run out earlier. And that, right now, it runs out before June the 30th. And I said, well, you know, my position is we need to go to the feds then and say that we're not getting enough funding then to include even the public and charter schools, and we still need more for the homeschool children. And then this young lady that had contacted me, she has 3 children now, and the youngest one is just starting to talk. But the other 2 both have speech problems, and it's really helped this young lady. If you could hear her mother give the story about how this girl couldn't express herself, she sometimes would get so flustered that she would even cry because she couldn't express herself. And since she's been taking the speech pathology, she's blossomed. The young lady, I spoke with her the other day, and the child is just, it's just heartwarming to see what has happened. So at that point, I made up my mind that I wasn't going to give in. I said, we're going to get this bill at some point. If it gets voted down, it's not going to be on my conscience. It's going to be that this bill had a proper opportunity, got aired with both the Senate and the House. So the bill went through committee on Wednesday, and then it was brought to the floor. All 21 legislators in the Senate supported it, and then it was sent to the House, and the House Committee on Wednesday voted it out of committee. So now I'm just sitting, waiting to see what actually happens with the bill. Now, any child with any type of disability that is homeschooled is entitled to these federal dollars. And I just feel that it's not about Dave Wilson. I don't want any credit for it. I just think that it's something that if we're going to say in Delaware that no child be left behind, then how can we leave a child with a speech problem and we leave them behind? So speech pathology is only one part of it. So there's a broader picture than just speech pathology, but it's time that we do what's right for our children. And homeschools, public schools, private schools, charter schools, it's about doing what's right for our Delaware students.
Senator, Senate Bill 106 garnered wide bipartisan support in the Senate. Is that what you were expecting, and do you think we'll expect to see the same in the House?
Well, I was kind of surprised in the Senate because Senator Sokola had talked with me, and he said that he was going to support the bill. So when Pro Tem was on board with it, I felt that I had probably a pretty good chance. But I know that looking at the school districts, some of those schools up north, so to say, don't look at homeschool as a good source of education probably. So I said, we'll probably have some issues with up north. But when the bill was presented in committee, it was very accepted. And then when it went to the floor, those that wasn't on the bill asked to be included on the bill. So I felt real confident then. Then when it went to the House Committee, Education Committee on Wednesday, got voted out of there. I said, I think we're on the home front now. And then I was really impressed with Representative Longhurst. She spoke out very much in favor of it. So it's a bipartisan bill. It's not about Democrats and Republicans. It's about doing what's right for our students in Delaware, regardless of whether you're in Kent, Sussex, or Newcastle. Every child needs to be treated fair.
Well, Senator, I know you've been a strong advocate for the homeschool community and education in general here in Delaware. So I know the people in this state as well, and especially in your district, are very thankful for that. So thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you. And it's just great to be a part of the legislature and to see how the legislature works when we all work together.
Now we're back with Senator Brian Pettyjohn. It's good to be with you. Senator, Senate Bill 92 was recently voted out of the Senate Environmental Committee. Could you tell us a little bit more about what Bill 92 does?
Sure. Senate Bill 92 actually came to me earlier on this year from members of our volunteer fire service that we have here in Delaware. We've got some great men and women that volunteer their time all throughout the year to keep our community safe. And they came to me with an issue where they ran up against the cap, where there were no more surf tags being issued because we exceeded that number. And a number of them get those tags not because they actually go surf fishing, but they go to some of the inland state parks that we have here in Delaware. Sure. Down here in Sussex County, a real popular one is Trap Pond. We've got Lumps Pond upstate, and a number of state parks throughout the state that they go to, but they don't necessarily go surf fishing. Under current Delaware law, the only thing they can get is a surf tag. So I've seen passenger cars out there, two-wheel drive cars with surf tags, and I've always wondered what was up with them. And I actually saw somebody that I recognized one time and asked them about it, and they said, well, our firefighter, and this is what we get. So it was a Lincoln that had a surf tag on it. So taking into account the fact that we have so many of our firefighters that didn't make the cut this year to get that tag. This bill idea came up to me where they can choose whether or not they get a surf tag or they can get one of the annual park passes at no cost to them as a thank you and as a benefit for them being an active firefighter or EMT or any number of things here within the state of Delaware.
Senator, Senate Bill 92 gives firefighters and EMTs in Delaware who live in Delaware the choice of a free surf tag or annual park pass. Right. Does the bill have any language that addresses folks who are firefighters or EMTs in Delaware but who live outside of the state?
It actually does. It addresses that as well by allowing them to obtain those permits at in-state rates. So there is also a benefit for those who don't live in Delaware, but who benefit our communities by serving those capacities as well.
And finally, will this bill free up surf tags for members of the public to buy if they're not claimed by firefighters and EMTs?
Yeah, well, the process how it goes now is a first come, first served basis. And I know there are a number of firefighters that get their forms in early and get those tags. And of course, some of those got their tags when they don't necessarily need the surf tag. So in essence, yes, it will free up a number. Not sure exactly what that number will be, but it will certainly free up a number of those tags for the general public to be able to use as well.
Well, Senator, moving on, why don't you tell us about the task force that you're a member of that just met recently?
Okay, so I'm a member of the Law Enforcement Accountability Task Force and also a member of the Transparency and Accountability Subcommittee. The main task force just met to go over the recommendations and adopt the recommendations from that subcommittee that I'm also a member of. We had some pretty spirited debate about the recommendations. We passed some of them, and some of the recommendations we decided not to pass on into the final recommendations of the main task force as well. But transparency and accountability addressed issues such as dealing with LEOBR, the Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights, about releasing information when law enforcement officers had issues with disciplinary records, and some other things as well. But there were, and I'm sorry, I've got to use a little cheat sheet here. There were 7 final recommendations that came from the subcommittee. Out of that, 4 of them were adopted and 3 of them were not. We adopted restructuring and expanded the Council on Police Training to include more civilians. And also provide more authority in decertifying law enforcement officers, creating law enforcement officer disciplinary database, increasing the public's access to that public decertification information, and creating a public-facing law enforcement agency database that will provide the public with information on citizens' complaints that are made, substantiated complaints, unsubstantiated complaints, and disciplinary actions for each agency. Some of the ones that we didn't decide to adopt, creating policies, creating civilian review boards for local law enforcement agencies, that was not passed. Review and amend the Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights to increase transparency and accountability in police disciplinary process. And the other one was addressing the precedent that collective bargaining agreements and the Freedom of Information Act obligations appeared to interfere with some of the transparency of what happened within our law enforcement agencies. Complete minutes will be in the final report when that's published. But again, there was a good, robust conversation about all of these, as well as a couple of weeks ago when the other subcommittee's recommendations were adopted as well. A lot of people realize that there has to be some changes within law enforcement. I'm a big supporter of body cameras. I think they do great for our officers, so that when there are complaints that come in from the outside, that they're able to look back at the tape and see what actually happened. And also for the public, so that they know what their interactions are with the police, that if there is an issue, there is something that's there on camera. I think it's great for both sides. One of the things that I'm really focusing in on with the body cameras on a statewide basis is, one, we have a statewide policy about the use of those. I think it's important that we have a consistent use from agency to agency, from county to county, from municipality to municipality, how those are used. And second, centralized storage. As you know, professionally I work in the IT field. I know how difficult storage is. And managing storage from a department by department basis with all the departments that we have here in the state would be very cumbersome to those individual departments. Right now we have a statewide system for our criminal justice system. It's called Delgis. That's where all the criminal records are stored. We have a system called LEASE where a lot of the law enforcement investigation records are stored, and those are centralized systems within Delaware. We're the only state that does it. and actually we're the envy of a lot of states within the country, that we have one integrated system with every law enforcement agency in the state. It helps a lot. And I think this is something that needs to be bolted onto that, so that not only do we have that information available in a centralized basis, and it's maintained and backed up and administered centrally, but when it comes down to the storage of that evidence, is pretty much what it is. That electronic evidence is also centrally stored within the state.
Senator, of course this task force discussed a lot about accountability after the fact. Has the task force touched on methods that police might use to help bridge the divide between them and the communities that they police?
There were other task forces that were part of this broader task force. There were other subcommittees. Some of them had to deal with training. Others, they touched on community outreach and how to build that trust and rebuild the trust between certain communities that we have within our state and the law enforcement that's out there to protect and serve them. I think it's a discussion it's very ripe to keep that discussion going as we move forward. And realizing that not everybody's going to get everything that they want in this process. That there is going to be some give and take. There are going to be some things that law enforcement necessarily doesn't like about some of the final recommendations, and there are some things that members of the community aren't going to like about the result of these final recommendations. But in the end, it's going to be a collaborative effort. It's going to be both sides working together. It's going to be more focus on community policing, making sure that our officers are more out there. And members of the community out there, participating within the community. I remember as a kid, when my dad was driving, and he would, be coming up on a police officer, he would wave to the officer would wave back. And part of that was, the fact that, the officers, knew my father knew the officers. But it was more than that. I think it was just more of that connection with the people that were out there. Now with everything, and it's not just police officers, but everything that's in your vehicle right now, it's easier to kind of get focused on what's inside that cabin of your vehicle, rather than keeping your eyes open and engaging and making eye contact with people that are coming and passing you on the road. I think if we become more cognizant, not only on the law enforcement side, but as the public. Be more cognizant to try to reach out and make those human connections with our law enforcement. It can do nothing but improve the relationship with law enforcement in our communities.
But on that same topic, Senator, on Monday, May 17th, you're hosting a rally to show the public's appreciation for law enforcement. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and this is something that we had started planning before Corporal Heacook was tragically killed in Delmar. But, our communities, our law enforcement officers are part of our communities. And I think a lot of times when you hear the narrative that is prevalent, especially on the national side, about the relationship between our communities and law enforcement, it seems to come out negative. It seems to be a negative narrative. And I know for a fact, here in our area, in Sussex County, and I think really on Delmarva in general, we support law enforcement. The people support law enforcement, especially our good law enforcement officers. And I'd like to make sure that our community shows that support for those men and women who are out there protecting us every day and enforcing the laws that are enacted by our General Assemblies. So I am hosting another law enforcement appreciation rally on Monday, and really it's for the community to come out and just say thank you to them. Thank you for what they're doing. Thank you to their families for the sacrifices that they make in time. Law enforcement officers, it's not a 9-to-5 job where they punch a clock, come in, come out. There's off hours. There's long shifts. There's overnight shifts where they'll miss holidays, they'll miss birthdays, they'll miss things like that. And with the narrative that's going on right now, a lot of people in law enforcement don't really realize that the community does support what they do.
Now, Senator, correct me if I'm wrong, but the rally will be held Monday, May 17th, right, at 7 p.m. at the Georgetown Circle.
Yes, Monday, May 17th, 7 p.m. at the Circle in Georgetown. Come there. Park along the side streets. Just watch out when we're closing the Circle. We're not going to close off traffic to it. But come out and just show law enforcement that we really appreciate the great work that they do here in our communities.
Well, I'll tell you, Senator, I think we've seen more in the past 2 weeks than in a long time before how much support actually does exist. Silent support sometimes, but support nonetheless for our law enforcement community. So I'm sure it'll be a great turnout, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Great, thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Senator Pettyjohn, for joining us today. And
Absolutely.
also, thank you to Senator Wilson for coming in and discussing his very important piece of legislation, Senate Bill 106. And thank you, Charlie, for helping out.
I'm glad to be here. Now, don't forget to like this video, comment below, subscribe to our channel, and share it so that we can get this message out to the constituency that Senator Pettyjohn and the other senators in this caucus represent. So thank you, Matt. Thank you, Senator.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charlie.
See you next week.